Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday BAIgel, your weekly podcast exploring the intersection of AI, law, and technology. I'm your host, Michał Jackowski, and today is my great privilege to host one of the most influential voices in privacy law and technology regulation, Professor Daniel Solove. Professor Solove is Professor of Intellectual Property and Technology Law at the George Washington University Law School, co-director of University's Center for Law and Technology, and directs the Privacy and Technology Law program there. Widely recognized as one of the world's foremost experts in privacy law, has authored more than 10 influential books and over 100 articles. Most cited legal scholar born after 1970, ranked as the first most cited legal scholar in the law and technology field. His scholarship has been downloaded over 700,000 times on platforms like SSRN and BPress, and his work has more than 25,000 citations on Google Scholar. He is also a prominent thought leader with more than 1 million followers on LinkedIn. His most acclaimed works are Breached, Why Data Security Law Fails and How to Improve It, Nothing to Hide, Understanding Privacy, Future of Reputation. Additionally, Professor Solove co-authored leading textbooks like Information Privacy Law, EU Data Protection, and the GDPR. We meet today to discuss Professor Solove's latest book on privacy and technology, recently described as privacy masterpiece. In this concise and impactful work, he redefines privacy, moving beyond the classic notion of the right to be left alone to more nuanced and complex web of rights and societal claims. Simultaneously, he recently published a paper titled Artificial Intelligence and Privacy, emphasizing how AI reshapes privacy concerns by remixing existing challenges into new, heightened threats. It's an absolute honor, Daniel, to have you here with us today, and welcome to Monday BAIgel.
Thanks so much for having me.
Could you briefly tell us what inspired you to write on privacy and technology at this particular moment? Is it a particular moment at all?
Yeah, it's a quarter century since I started writing and teaching in privacy. So I thought it's just for that alone, 25 years is a good time to reflect on how things have changed, how my thinking has evolved, what I've learned along the way of looking at privacy all these years. And I also was inspired by, I read Timothy Snyder's on tyranny. And what I liked about that book was how he managed to encapsulate his thought in such a short book. And that I wanted to mimic that in this book. I wanted to be concise. That was a really key goal of mine, to pull it all together, make it accessible, and reflect over the long term. But also, I think we're living in a moment now where the concerns about privacy are really at a fever pitch. And we're also living in an age of AI where technology is growing so rapidly, changing so drastically, that the issues of privacy are incredibly more important than ever before. And the law is developing at a rate that is staggeringly fast, especially for the law, which is typically slow, but we're really seeing a very fast development of the law. And unfortunately, I think the law is going in the wrong direction. So all these different things were things that inspired me to want to write this book.
It seems that the timing of your book perfectly captures a critical juncture in privacy regulation. So new technologies and new technological realities demand right now deeper reflection and redefinition. So coming to definitions, how do you explain your concept of privacy? You write about it in this book, and it's great to read, but maybe some of us would like to hear it from you. It's not simply the classic idea of the right to be left alone, but a complex of claims and rights. You mention it in the book, your taxonomy of privacy. So can you explain, elaborate on it?
Yeah, this is something I was thinking about from early on, because a lot of the definitions of privacy have been really struggle to capture privacy. And I always thought it's really important to understand, well, what are we talking about when we talk about privacy? Because we need to know, what should we be protecting? What's harmed? What is the scope of what the law should address? And one of the difficulties is that privacy is such a difficult, messy concept to understand. And so the approach that I took was to recognize that privacy is not one thing, it's many things.
Hmm.
And that these many different things don't all have the same common denominator. They don't all have the same thing in common. And that's what a lot of traditional definitions try to do, look for the common thing that is everything has. And that always leads to an over-inclusive definition, something that's too large and vague and it covers everything. The right to be let alone, for example, well, you know, everything could be the right to be
Hmm.
let alone. I bump you in the subway. I've not let you alone, but is that privacy? And then a lot of the definitions were too narrow. They'd focus on things that would be just too restrictive and exclude a lot of things. And that was a problem because if something gets excluded from privacy, then it doesn't get protected a lot of
Hmm.
times by the law. So the approach I did was to kind of look at from the ground up, what is the landscape look like? What are the different things that we typically have talked about in terms of privacy, that the law is protected here and there, or that uh, other sources would indicate are privacy issues, and then identify what these things are. And then from there, that's how I developed the taxonomy of privacy. We can better identify what privacy is, and also why it matters, why it's valuable, because it's valuable for different reasons depending on the particular dimensions of privacy that we're talking about, and why violations of privacy cause harm.
I think it's especially important in a dynamic society that is right now. So when you have such a broad definition, it can include some more dimensions that appear. What do you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that technology is constantly changing and it's constantly evolving. And that is the catalyst for a lot of issues that arise with privacy. And a lot of these issues are changes of degree.
Mm.
They make things bigger, faster, more efficient, but changes in degree can readily become changes in kind. If you take something and you make it a lot more efficient, you can change the nature of that thing and make it a lot more problematic. Whereas a little bit would be okay, a lot could be very troubling. And so, one thing I wanted to note in the book is that we can't just say, or just, oh, well, this is just a change in degree, so nothing's new here. There is something new, even though things have changed in degree, because the vast lowering of costs, the vast efficiency, the vast scaling that technology has brought has really made things a lot more potentially harmful, has created a lot more issues that we need to be aware of, that before were concerning, but now are extremely concerning.
Mm-hmm. In your recent paper, Artificial Intelligence and Privacy, you describe AI-related privacy problems as remixes of existing challenges. Could you elaborate on what of these remixed issues are and why they are particularly pressing today?
Yeah, so AI is actually a bunch of older technologies. I mean, it's the people, oh, it's just new. That's because the media is kind of focused on it recently. And because there's a bit of a rebrand, everyone's branding anything with an algorithm as AI.
Hmm.
And AI is not the best name for what's going on, because it's actually not artificial and it's not intelligent. It's not artificial because these are humans who are figuring out what data to train on, humans deciding what the models are, humans involved, the data itself involves humans. So there's human fingerprints throughout all of AI. And it's also not intelligent. These are not sentient robots. We're really dealing with algorithms that are looking at data and essentially looking at patterns in data. And they're just crunching very large amounts of data, and uh, they're just a greater computing power and a lot more data has made these technologies work a lot better. So the remix comes in because a lot of the things that AI does and the issues it causes are are ones that have been with us for a very long time. I mean, we've had algorithms that look at patterns, that do data analysis. We've called it different names. We've called it big data, called it aggregation.
Mm-hmm.
But today, now AI has kind of taken over as the term for this. And the difference is it's a difference in degree, which has turned into a difference in kind. I'll give you one example of where this is the case. So consider surveillance. We already have all sorts of surveillance cameras throughout society. Some societies, like the UK, have CCTV and cameras everywhere. In the United States, there are cameras in a lot of places, and there's increasingly more cameras as private individuals have their doorbell cameras and surveillance cameras in stores and in various other locations, let alone government surveillance cameras. But there's just a lot of them, and uh, but you typically in the past to uh, you need a person to watch the surveillance footage. So the cameras could be there and on, but there's a limit to what you could monitor. There's a limit to what you could control and analyze because there's so many people could actually do it. Just like the CCTV system in the UK, you had humans in the room sitting there watching all the cameras. And you've seen this in movies, right? There's a person in this big room with all the TV screens and they're watching all the cameras and what's going on. What AI can do is that AI can analyze all that footage. You don't need all those humans watching all those minutes of footage. The AI can just pluck out those instances where some pattern looks weird or suspicious or whatever, or fits whatever the AI, and then a human looks at it. But that is dramatically increasing the efficiency, and that dramatically increases the power of the government, or when the government gathers the data from the private sector,
Mm-hmm.
or private sector power. It dramatically changes surveillance to make it far more invasive, far more pervasive. That, I think, is where AI can make things very troubling and can take a bunch of cameras that, are already invasive and make them exponentially more invasive.
So, do you believe that in this AI era, where privacy is remixed, all the traditional problems are magnified and complicated, privacy can still exist as a negative right? When I was taught 25 years ago during my studies, it was a right, negative right against interference. Or has it become more a collective, positive right, requiring proactive protection from governments and organizations, like right to ownership? Maybe we should move away from talking about right to privacy towards discussing more structured right to data protection, which may vary significantly across jurisdictions. Like EU, it's a bit different construed, and in the US, it's also a different approach, and in China, totally different one. So what do you think about it? You write in this book why isn't privacy not that, and why it should be protected, but maybe this is the change of the approach.
Yeah, well, I think privacy is both negative and positive. We're definitely trying to protect against harms to people. We're definitely trying to give people uh, protections in privacy that are, there's nothing wrong with giving people individual privacy rights and protections. But that alone won't get you there in terms of giving us strong protection. So let's allow individuals to access their data, correct their data, have data portability, delete their data. And there's nothing wrong with this. I think, yeah, people should have the right to delete their data. People should have the right to see what data companies have about them. But the law often says, well, that's how we're going to protect privacy. We'll just give it to the individuals, and then the individuals will just somehow manage their privacy. And that just doesn't work. And that's a big focus of what I talk about in the book, is that individuals are just not able to do this, is not equipped to do this, don't have the knowledge to do it, don't have the time to do it. It doesn't scale. You can't do this with 1,000 different organizations that have your data. You just can't. You don't have time. And it's not just they have your data once. They're a lot of them are constantly collecting it and using it. And the privacy notices that they put out explaining what they're doing really just, no one reads them. And even if people read them, these policies don't say anything meaningful. They don't tell you what you really need to know. And what do people really need to know? It's actually pretty simple, but very complex at the same time. It's a risk calculation. There's a cool new technology. What are the benefits to me? What do I get from using it? That's easy to figure out, right? Okay, what are the benefits? Oh, cool. This is an app. It's going to do this. Great. I can understand what the technologies are going to do for me. What are the risks? What are the costs? What could possibly go wrong for me down the road with this? And I'm going to make a risk calculation. The benefit's worth the risk. Unfortunately, the risk is almost impossible for me to know. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes in their privacy program. I don't know what their algorithms are doing. Their algorithms are constantly evolving. So what they can do now is different than what they can do tomorrow. There's a lot of, I don't even know what information I'm exposing to them. I think I'm exposing certain information to them, but the algorithms can then analyze that information and make inferences and find out other information. So there's a great example that I talk about in this book. This actually happened a long time ago, and the algorithms are even more sophisticated now. But what happened was a store, Target, decided it wanted to figure out who among its customers was pregnant. And they wanted to figure this out before they started buying baby products so they could start marketing baby products to them. And they had an algorithm that looked through all their purchases and looked for patterns in the purchases. And it was pretty good. It was able to figure out who was pregnant before they actually started buying baby products. And in one instance, a father of a teenage girl went to the store and said, I don't understand why we're getting all these baby ads. We're getting bombarded by baby ads at home. And it turns out his teenage daughter was pregnant. She just hadn't told him yet. There's a lot of implications with this. One is, people were buying the products that, they wouldn't think would give it away that they were pregnant. The things that the algorithm was picking up on were things like, are you buying unscented products or cotton balls? These are the things that, so what this shows is innocuous information that we wouldn't think would give away something sensitive like health do. And this happens all the time. What you think, oh, I'm just giving this away, I'm giving that away. But then suddenly a company can, through its algorithm, figure out your political beliefs, figure out your religion, figure out all sorts of information about you, figure out all sorts of things about your health. That is a big problem, because how can an individual manage that? Is an individual supposed to become an expert computer scientist, an expert in AI, to really understand how these algorithms are going to make inferences about them? And if individuals can't know what the data about them will be, how can they possibly have any meaningful control over their data? So you have to, I think, the law has to have a broader view, can't rely on the individual, has to protect privacy in a broader way. Just dumping it in the lap of individuals and saying, go and manage your privacy is just not going to work in today's age of AI.
What makes me a bit scared about this shift from negative privacy rights to positive framework is the lack of scope that we may catch, like a lack of universal scope. We can always discuss on these positive claims that altogether create the privacy or the right to privacy. So this is what makes me scared, but probably this is the only solution we may right now approach.